just getting out and doing a lot of cycling and spend some time on Michigan. It's about,
More fun when there's no pressure.
yes. And now that I'm retired, I've got no filters.
You're unleashed.
Unleashed.
Have you heard from anyone?
I did not get any,
Just Joe?
huh?
Just Joe?
What?
Right, Joe can't be here?
Oh, yeah, that's the only notification I got from anyone. I didn't hear from Tom Nelson or Jeff Nelson about a planned absence.
Okay. How many are on, is it 6?
So we need 4 for quorum. So how are things going with you?
Good. Keep them moving.
So you're taking care of the shadow home for us?
Yeah, and the rest of the county waterways. Yeah, we're in the middle of clearing about 20 miles of Casadega Creek right now.
Wow, that's good.
Hoping to get that cleared so we can still do like a public paddle before the season's over.
That'd be nice.
And we did about 17 miles of Lava Creek last fall. And we've got everything else mapped out, so hopefully we get some fun next year to clear the whole thing. And we can have 60 miles.
Do you have a lot of applications in for the CFA?
I skipped a year. Mostly because I ran out of time, but also because we hadn't gotten contracts for last year's project yet, so.
We never stay this behind, are we?
Not
It never happens.
They announced it in March instead of November, and then, yeah, it's like mid-August right now, so then no contracts.
Well, being an election year this year, I'm pretty sure it's all announced.
Well, it's gonna be some good timing for that.
Yeah, Tom Nelson actually emailed me when materials went out last week that he planned to be here.
Okay. Can I post and share the comprehensive plan meeting?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I just want to wait. We have a location now.
Yes, yes, oh yeah, absolutely.
When's that happening?
September 10th.
And where is it?
Look at
Warren.
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 Oh,
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
I don't know.
It's down, it's
Just-
right around the tanks.
I think it's up in their mezzanine area,
Okay.
is what they were calling it, so.
Hasn't had time to actually go there yet. Looks like it's been pretty busy in July.
Yeah, I was waiting for it to die, the newness to die down a little bit.
For some reason, I keep driving by like late Friday afternoon and there's people sitting on the sidewalk. It's just like super
That's
busy
good.
traffic. It's good to see people, but
Yeah.
it's not a great place to just sit and have a beer when there's so much traffic.
I'm gonna go give them both a buzz.
It's cheap. Find out some occasions.
good project.
So it's nothing about the
Starting to fall asleep.
There's nothing about the excitement. I'll get home sometimes and lay on the couch for about 2 minutes, and I'll feel myself start to doze off until my daughter throws a stuffed animal or something at me.
Jump away. What?
Yeah. I was parenting, that's right.
Wait, I got kids.
Yeah, what are you doing here?
It's like, well, where's your mom?
Yeah.
Amazing, I asked one of the guys in the office for the rendering of the old Chautauqua Center when we did it, and of course, he's like, hey, I got a live picture, and picked him over on the power tool. Just realized that, I'm like, ah, great.
That's okay.
Cool. It's kinda like how that terracotta look, kind of
Yeah.
color came out on
It's
it.
very distinctive.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my CFA grants from last year is actually to restore the banks on both sides of the river, shopping center. We'll forget it. And then we'll burn it.
Does that become easier once you get away from that dam a little bit?
That one's interesting because it's got a good retaining, good section of retaining wall on one side, the other side is just a mess. Right? We're actually hoping to take the pavement and retaining wall and just bust it up and restack it, just reuse the materials that we have anyway. It's actually become one of the biggest tiny shop building sites in the city. Unfortunately, a lot of them, like the little baby turtles get squished in the parking lot. It's just a mess on the other side of the vehicle. Like to get some barriers out there.
I got a hold of Jeff, he's on his way. Ready.
So we'll call the planning commission meeting to order. It is 3:46, and we're gonna change the agenda a little bit and have our presentation from Juan from the Chautauqua Watershed Conservatory first. We'll let you go ahead and take it away.
All right.
See, oh, yeah, oh, no.
Sorry,
Let me just unplug from here.
You can do your stuff.
Yeah, okay, cool. He probably know how to do it better.
Since most of you already know most of the work we've been doing, you can probably go. This is a program on tropical frogs and Chautauqua Institution before I came here.
Nice.
You want questions? Or whatever you say?
If anybody has any frog questions, I'm more than
Yeah,
happy.
you're right.
Just a question.
Just switching gears. Slightly switching gears.
Not far.
Alright, yeah, you all know there's been a lot of stuff going on at the Riverwatch for quite some time now, so I figured I'd just do a quick recap and just give you a quick heads up on what's been funded through the city, plus some other things, because we've been using a lot of our funding to leverage it with other grants as well. And just to give you an idea of what's funded, what's already completed, what's still in progress, projects. But really, I see everything that's being done right now is laying the foundation for just all kinds of great things that are still possible. It's a lot of work and it's a big river, but really a lot of the things that we're doing right now are essentially foundational. Like if we didn't do these things first, a lot of the projects that are in the hopper at the economic development site just wouldn't even be feasible. One bank collapse underneath your new food truck plant or whatever you want to put in there, right? So I just put this picture in here really quickly because this is kind of where it started a few years ago, and it's kind of maturing nicely and it's starting to turn into something that we kind of want to create a sort of look and feel, but also the sort of infrastructure that's buried underneath it that actually helps stop the ongoing damage that the riverbanks are seeing in the city. And not to blame anyone or point any fingers, but the biggest issue that we still have and will be facing is inadequate stormwater management systems in the city. All the water runs downhill. And most of the erosion issues, bank collapse issues that we're seeing are simply the side effect of bringing in gravity. It's just water running down the hill, super saturating these banks and just gradually caving in. And there's really nothing that keeps them in place. And traditionally, those kind of cave-in banks have just been backfilled with rock and riprap, which just buys you another 5 to 10 years and then back to square one again. So the only thing really that keeps sustainably these banks in place is if you add vegetation to stabilization. And with the stabilization obviously where it's needed, where you've got the high energy sections, where you've got real erosion issues. But it's that combination of hard armoring where it's needed, but soft armoring on living shorelines that really is what keeps this sustainably alive. Literally alive. But it also creates some cool habitat along the river, so it brings attractions, it brings an attractive atmosphere. It gives you something to look at and see when you're walking the river walk. It's not just lawn and a bunch of geese, right? So, you all know there's almost 6 miles of Jamestown River in Jamestown, starting from Clifton Avenue on the top, going through the outlet forest right there, the wetlands, half of it, this side of the river is all home to the city. And almost, well actually, both sides of the city. And then Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy owns 23 parcels farther upstream from West Lake. And it goes all the way to Tiffany Avenue, where obviously we built along there. And you go from just this incredible contrast of this incredibly beautiful natural river, like it looks like the Amazon River, kind of it's gorgeous right there, to very urban river that's seen all the urban uses and urban abuses that you can pretty much throw at a river over a century or two. And right in the middle of it is the Warner Dam, which is kind of a key aspect of what works and what doesn't work in the river. And it's a major factor in how the river reacts both upstream from the dam and downstream from the dam. And it's frankly one of the biggest items I think that needs a bigger discussion in the long term in terms of the way the dam is being operated, regulated right now is not at all conducive, in my mind, to what economic development plans that are on the table are being, ready for true development.
Who manages the dam?
So the dam is owned and operated by the state, EDC, but it needs to go through county watershed coordinator, David McCoy, and then ultimately is the BPU that pushes the button and opens and closes it. It's technically not a dam, it's a water control structure. And the most simplest form, it closes on May 1st to start holding back water and regulate the lake level. So this is actually a structure that regulates the water level in Chautauqua Lake. And it stays closed with minimal adjustments depending on storm events during the summer to mitigate flooding, or like last year in a really dry summer, it gets closed longer or closed earlier and then closed longer to hold water back in Chautauqua Lake to allow for recreational uses. And then November 1st, it opens up again to drain the lake level some and to mitigate any kind of potential flooding during the summer. There's 3 doors in there, the only 2 doors are supposed to be open only when the lake goes over 1,230 feet above sea level, like critical flood level is the 3rd door allowed to be opened. At that point, someone's gonna get hurt, either upstream or downstream, someone's gonna flood above the dam, or someone in Pennsylvania is gonna get it, but at that point, it's not available. And then the other regulatory factor is that there's a minimum discharge of 60 CFS, 60 cubic feet per second required from the dam to make sure that the water treatment plant has enough water in the river to dilute whatever effluent comes out of that. So the river always flows at a minimum of 60 CFS, which is realistically what it runs like in the summer. Right now, that's pretty much what it runs at. If we get some rain, it goes a little higher. If we get a lot of rain, then they'll open the door a little farther open, and there's a little bit more there just to drain the lake. But it's a blunt instrument, it's on and off pretty much. And what happens is that the way this is being mandated right now, and I'm sorry if I get too far into this, but I think it's important for people to know that the Warner Dam is essentially creating a recreational Chautauqua Lake. But by doing that, it is creating non-recreational conditions in the city. Because there's a bottleneck in the river right by the Steel Street Bridge. That's like the pinch point, that's kind of truly the bottleneck, that's what truly determines how much water the river can actually flow out of. You can open the doors of the dam all the way. This happens in the winter, you know, there are times when the lake is flooding in the winter, and you go downtown and the basin looks almost dry. That's because the dam is wide open and it's shooting all the water that's coming in straight through, but it's actually being held back slightly farther upstream than Steel Street, which means that you actually have a series of rapids. There's almost a full foot, 5 foot drop sometimes between the water upstream from the Steel Street Bridge and the basin. So you open the door, the basin drains really quickly, but then the water is held back at Steel Street, so usually at a flood level. So when there's a lot of water in the lake, there's 0 water in the basin, which leaves a big mud flat. And it's not exactly conditions that are conducive to boating, which tends to happen in the winter, which is okay, but it's not something that's easy to maintain. But for example, last year, when we had really dry conditions, the county petitioned the state to actually close the Warner Dam almost a month early to make sure that more water was held back in Chautauqua Lake to allow people to put their docks in and all that, because they were worried the water level in the lake would drop too fast. And they were really rainy in the summer, and it didn't open again until late November. So from mid-April to mid-November, the dam was essentially closed, keeping the water in the basin completely stagnant, creating the perfect condition for algal blooms. Like the river was as green as can be all summer. So the river creates good conditions in the lake, but it creates adverse conditions in the city under the right conditions, or wrong right conditions. So anyway, I think this is something that needs to be discussed at whatever level, but it needs to involve county and state officials if we ever want to have a chance of changing that. But
So at the present time, the city doesn't have any say in whether the dam is released or not. It's all county and county
it's
petition. DEC.
yes, yeah, and they either get granted that permission or not.
So a lot of the plans that we're looking at, and potentially one of the comprehensive plan, you know, could be contingent upon what transpires.
Yeah, at the very least, I would at least keep the DEC informed and the Office of Flood Management informed, but these are things that need to be discussed. And, you know,
Is
without
there a method that would allow both, the lake to
I
be
think so.
recreational as much as it is now, and the river?
I think so, but it would require some retrofitting of the dam, I think. I can see, so, and we'll get to this in a minute, but like, last year when I was working in Chattacoin, I was able to control the dam to some degree and was able to manipulate the water level in Chattacoin to allow crews to get in and also drop trees and use the water pressure to actually flood the take out points. So I've had quite a bit of experience with that, you know, opening and closing the dam for several hours, several days in a row and seeing what impact it has downstream and upstream. And several times I would, halfway through the day, would go to a great point and talk to all the fishermen and see if they'd noticed anything, if they'd noticed water level changes or anything like that, which is not far from the dam. They can't tell. So there's no reason why you couldn't open the dam for a couple of hours even, or even a day or two without really noticeably making a difference to the water level upstream from there. Like I think if I think back on the rule curve for the dam, I believe if the dam was fully open, it would take about 6 days before Chautauqua Lake would actually lower 4 inches. There's a lot of water that can, it takes a long time to make a difference on the lake. So you can open the dam for hours and nobody would notice except for the basin. So my thoughts are not based on any kind of research just yet, but that in order to avoid these kind of stagnant water, toxic algae bloom situations, if there was a way to have an automated opening of the dam, let's say midnight to 3 o'clock in the morning, and just get some circulation going in the basement, flush it out, and before it becomes green and toxic, if you could do this every day, you can potentially keep the basin much cleaner by just holding it close for 7 months straight and having the sun bake it and heat it. But because of the chain of commands, you know, state, county, city DPU, availability of somebody to actually go walk over there, unlock the box and push the button, it seems like there should be an automated process, which I'm sure it's not hard to do, but just to get that kind of remote control opportunities on the dam, I think that would be a really important thing to look into for a variety of reasons. To have a little bit more flexibility than just an on and off kind of switch. Being able to manipulate the water levels a little bit better, and having a better understanding of the impact, because right now, I mentioned the 60 CFS discharge rule, there's nobody measuring that. It's the same person who always opens the dam, and he has a pretty good handle of what that looks like when he pushes the button, but there's no, it's not a fine-tuned instrument. So for a variety of reasons, once we start thinking about activating the river, both upstream and downstream, I think having a little bit more control over the dam, how it operates, and having some more leeway in when it could potentially open and close, I think would be critical to the success of this. You don't want to activate the whole riverwalk area with patios and outdoor seating if people are just inhaling toxic outdoor fumes the whole summer. It's just not feasible. But that's frankly one of the pieces I've not seen discussed a whole lot in any of these conversations. I think
It's something that needs to be discussed.
it kind of, to make it break as far as I'm concerned, I just, it's gonna work out.
It seems like it would be nice if there could be some state dollars or something available just to do a study on.
Right.
So that there would be, research done and.
Yeah, what the feasibilities are, and just, like I think, was it 2-3 years ago, there was a big upgrade on the dam, they replaced the gates and a bunch of stuff was done, Army Corps was involved, but to my understanding, there was no conversation really with the city either about what they were doing, why they were doing it, it's just one of these things you just don't touch, they're kind of, they go with it, but I'm not sure how we can begin a conversation to have control over that or something like that, but given what's all in the planning, from the little I know about it, it seems like the dam is a really critical piece here.
Well, kind of, in regards to DEC, do you have any insight or anything on the, new, on the proposed wetlands regs that are gonna be coming out? Is it good for the Chattacoin, back to the Chattacoin?
I don't think it's gonna impact us at all. I think it's actually beneficial for us. I think it's beneficial for the lake too. I understand the concerns because, there's not a lot of transparency still right now. The rules are already in place, they've been implemented 2 years ago, this is just the public outreach, and this is where it's going off the rails some, because everybody's caught blindsided by this, but the rules have already changed. You know, from an environmental perspective, the fact that DC finally acknowledges that we've lost over 1 million acres of wetlands in the last 2 decades, and that should stop, because that's the one thing that's gonna keep our drinking water safe and keep our climate resilient. I think it's way too late to even start doing what they're doing right now. And still, the cutoff for wetlands that are state regulated is still 12.7 acres, so anything under that, you don't even care, you can fill it in pretty much with just local permits, and it's still pretty flexible. But of course, where the impacts might be felt is when it comes to south basin of the lake, because there are sections that look like a lake and are a lake, but based on the new guidelines, could be considered wetlands. Now, I've seen only assurances that everything, practices that are in place, will just get grandfathered in, which is generally these things go. So the only drawback is that there might be one extra round of permit applications that people need to go through, but frankly, from my perspective, as soon as you're gonna do anything that's gonna negatively impact the wetlands, you're gonna need a permit anyway, because that should be reviewed, so it's just a different permit at this point. But docks or anything like that won't change, they're not permanent structures, so they would fall outside of jurisdiction. I don't honestly see a whole lot of changes coming for Chautauqua, but most of what you hear is just misinformation, like Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy is actively being accused of physically turning the lake into a swamp, as if we had the money to go like, start planting plants and filling with dirt or something. It's just obviously not gonna happen. But that's the perception that seems to be out there. The biggest underlying reason why this happened was that DC wanted to be a little bit more protective of wetlands, so they went from 22 some acres to 12 acres for regulated wetlands. But the bigger challenge was that wetlands were determined based on the existing maps, and those maps are so inadequate that they just don't hold up in court, so they're all constantly over areas. And for just what we're talking about, if you even like delineate the Chattaquina River, as soon as you close the dam, the water line is exactly the same level that it is when the dam is open. So where do you draw the line between where the wetland starts and begins, right? Or like a vernal pool that's full of water in the spring and it's empty in the summer. Like how do you can't regulate it if you can't map it. So that instead of using maps, they're now using wetland indicators like vegetation and things like that to indicate whether something is a wetland or not. So by that rule, some of Chautauqua Lake shorelines will probably classify as wetland, even though they're still underwater and they're still a lake. They're just not drawn on the map and used as a legal boundary. That's really the main difference. So I get that that's confusing to people, but I honestly don't really see any negative side effects to this.
Will those indicators eventually translate onto a map?
No more maps.
No more maps.
No maps. So it's all done on environmental soil types, wetland soils, so there's all kinds of fixed wetland indicators that have been used forever for wetland delineation, just not when you're drawing a line around what's a lake and what's not a lake. So rather than drawing a line saying this is a lake, this is shore, now it's sort of clear, there's lake, and sections of the lake could be qualified as wetland because they're shallow enough that there's wetland vegetation in there, which then by DEC standards classifies it as a wetland.
Could that influence development, like structural development in terms of planning? Like in that 6 mile section of the city, would those boundaries be expanded, or is it something that, I'm just trying to figure like policy wise.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
How would,
I don't see any changes anywhere below, Creek Point, pretty much. It's the river is pretty much constant everywhere, there's really no like expansion, there's no expansion possibility. And all of the wetland areas above that are already classified as wetlands, so there's no change there, no. No, the biggest noise that you hear is lakefront owners, people who live on the lake who suddenly worry that their lake is no longer a lake or a wetland, but it's not, it's still gonna look the same, it's still gonna be the same, it just has a different regulatory label which might trigger an extra level of scrutiny when you're doing development there. But it's, like I said, it's it requires one extra set of permits, that's about it. Wow, we made it one slide.
Yeah. How long do you wanna go, Twan?
Sorry. No, it's good, I'm glad I finally had a chance to just chat with people, because it's important, I think. Alright, I'll go pretty quick here, because you've all seen this, you know, this is just the before status on the left of the, downstream section. There's the Warner Dam right in the top of the left side picture. On the right hand side, you can see what I was referring to earlier, like our stormwater management really needs updating. You know, there's clearly not water going those pipes, there's water coming above those pipes, that is surfacing those pipes, and maybe there's still water going through the pipes, but we're in that place, everything is hilly, and there's water at the bottom, so everything's gonna roll down, so.
And if it doesn't go into the river, Mark, you know, if we don't put it in the river, where do we put it?
Right, exactly, yeah.
I'll tell you that water definitely goes through those pipes.
Is it? I've seen similar pipes. I've been kind of some storms out there in my kayak where I was like terrified, even with like black sludge like I'm shooting out of there. It's pretty scary. Yeah, and that's again it's too like, you know, speaking as an environmentalist, it's like, you know, Stockholm Lake is a Class A watershed, right? So they're still drinking water pulled from directly from the lakes. It's very clean water, but as soon as it goes through Jamestown, there's a lot of sediment, there's a lot of runoff that's being added to that really quickly. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do over time, retrofitting some of this stuff, but keeping in mind that the water quality is, you know, I'm thinking 10,000 mile view here, with this, we're a climate refuge here, we're a climate refuge, and this is where people are gonna wanna move here soon. They already are. Like, we have 3 people on staff already who have moved from the west coast who are tired of sucking smoke all summer and having their backyards catch on fire. And you know, we have water, we have clean water. That's something that nobody else has. So, like it or not, I think this is our goal, this is our oil. This if we protect our clean water and if we promote the fact that we have clean water and that we take good care of it, this is what's going to bring people here. This is what's going to bring investment here. All around the Great Lakes, investors are buying up land everywhere. This is going to be huge investment opportunities for people. So, I get that we're dealing with 100+ years of backlog and old infrastructure and all that, but I hope that we can be smart in that when we do these improvements, that we do them like thinking 100 years ahead, because this is going to be our business card, this kind of stuff. This is like, if we can show to the world that we're aware of the fact that we have good water and that we're aware that we're trying to protect that, that's what's going to make people want to invest here. So here's that retaining wall right behind it, Stockton Center. This is just what we're dealing with. You know, these old retaining walls are just caving in, and once the cement is gone, then it just washes away, the banks just wash away. And unfortunately, these sections just create additional barriers, the hard structures, so the water goes underneath it and either side of it, and it just speeds up, has more energy, it just eats away even faster than if those walls weren't even there. We've got significant flooding all over the city. This is right behind 2nd Street. We have literally sections of the Chattacoin River that are kept together by piles of car tires. You can see it in the picture, there's literally stacks of car tires, a wall of car tires that's still there because there's trees growing. But there too, it shows you that it's that living stuff that's keeping the thing together. It's not the car tires, they would have been long gone if there were no trees growing in there. But look at how close those businesses are to the edge right there. This is terrifying. This is actively caving in, and the pile of car tires is keeping these businesses alive right now. And we've got infrastructure in the city that time and resources have been invested in that are completely overrun by invasive species and absolutely useless, but you know, if we chose to manage those properly, we can have infrastructure resurface and just reactivate it pretty easily. We've got thousands upon thousands of dead ash trees that are falling apart and creating hazards for people in the infrastructure, property damage, personal damage, all these kind of things. It's all stuff that just happened. There's nothing we can do about it. It's just, well, there's stuff we can do about it. It's nothing that we could prevent it from happening, but we just need to be aware of these situations and be smart about how we mitigate all that. So, really quickly, these are the grants that have been awarded through ARPA to the Stock Watershed Conservancy in the last few years. But I'll go through, and I'm happy to share this with everybody, so big notes or anything like that. But I'll go through them really quickly. But the essence is that phase 1 is really to clear debris out of the river, to clear all the obstructions out so that we could prevent the flooding, could prevent damage to the businesses. There were sections in the city where the river had carved out 3 new channels. There were like 4 Chattacoin rivers running side by side in neighborhoods, just because one channel got blocked and then it carved out a new hole and then trees fell in it or something happened, caved in, and another came in. We've been treating chemically treating the tree heaven all over the city to avoid our spotted lanternflies from coming in, which hopefully we can keep at bay because it will be a disaster for our grape industry once we get those here. Removing navigational hazards from the Shattuck Coin so we can have people safely recreating, kayaking, canoeing out there. And we've been doing some work in the outlet areas along Jones and Gifford because Jones and Gifford kept flooding because of beaver issues and the blocked channels as well. And once that was all completed, we got some additional funding for phase 2 to actually go through the river one more time because the initial phase was just to remove obstructions from the riverbed below the water line. But it still left hundreds of standing trees and compromised trees, so those were treated as well. We ended up removing all of the trees that were killed through the chemical treatment, so somebody had all these forests of tree heaven, and my initial assessment was about 1,500 of those trees along the river, and we ended up treating almost 3,500 trees, like the entire forest of those things. And we're doing some bank restoration right now below the train stations, opposite the section we showed you earlier behind the BPU, where we had critically unstable things. I'll just go through this really quickly. This was phase 1, so the water level drops and we close the dam. The dotted line says indicates where the water line is in the summer. So there's just hundreds upon hundreds of logs and just debris and garbage in the river. So we cleared all that out 2 years ago, creating numerous metric tons of woody debris everywhere. But just to give you an idea, this is the Dawson Metal Bridge on Allen Street. This is the before, that's the after.
Such a difference.
I know, right? This is probably the first time in 60 years that there's water going along both sides of the bridge. And you can kind of tell, actually, I mentioned earlier, like we were using the water levels to move all the lumber down and actually take it to places where we could safely pick it up without destroying the banks. We had 4 spots like that, and you can see one of the takeout points right there. So there were only 4 places in the whole city where we had real estate marks like that, where we could pull stuff out. So not a mark on the banks anywhere. We took all this stuff out without people even, you couldn't even tell we were there in most cases. This is behind 2nd Street, Hope's Windows. Look at the side of these log jams here. This is what it looks like right now. This spring was the first year, apparently, that the neighbors were able to have their Easter celebration in their backyards and they weren't underwater. It's the first time that the river is actually back where it's supposed to be in a long time. Just want to show you, this is cool historic photographs I've seen. Jamestown. I'm not sure what the date on this is, but look at the piles of lumber stacked on the ton of railroad tracks, but right behind the train station. So this is the basin, and the dam is kind of right behind there. I love this one too. 1874. So a lot of these logs that we're finding, we left a lot of logs that are embedded in the riverbed because they're remnants of this. Some of these are hundreds of years old. There's a huge one in the basin that we purposely left there in hopes that maybe someday you can raise it and maybe put it on the bank somewhere with a cool historic marker on it just to commemorate the cool lumber industry that used to happen right here. But one of the things that was a remnant of all this was this, that we had these vertical spikes sticking out of the basin when the water came down a little bit, because those are actually dividers that were planted there to sort out the logs as they were floating down. So all of the timbers are rotted out and the logs are gone, but those are still there, just preserved in the mud. And they created navigational hazards in the summer when the water levels were down. You were just a few inches below the water, so if you were out there with your canoe or your kayak, you could even hit one of those things and not see it and flip it. So we removed those earlier this year. You can see the monster log actually. You can see it kind of, it's like back there. You can see it lying in the water. It's kind of right here, over there. This is a massive, massive log. God knows how many hundreds of years old. Then Jones and Gifford, we ended up doing some hydrological analyses and found out that there were 2 dams that were physically obstructing all of the outflow from the whole area to the left-hand side, the south side of Jones and Gifford. All of that drains towards the wetland system right there. But historically, there was an artificial canal called Canal Street that would go all the way through here, so boats would come in with their cargo, and once they're lighter, they would actually take the shortcut back and cut about 1.5 miles up their journey off. But that messed with the hydrology in the Shattuck Coin and it actually lowered the water levels in the main body of the river. So a long time ago, BDC put a water control structure over here. So this Paper Street, Canal Street, is mostly filling in from this end, but the bottom end is still the only drainage canal that drains this entire area. So whenever we have a big rainstorm, was running right in here, sitting in these wetlands, right behind the Bertota's fields. This was the only place it can actually gap. And so there were two beaver dams that have been sitting there for quite some time. And they looked at some LiDAR data and stuff and could tell that the water level right there was exactly the same as it was near the roads. So we were able to, you can see the dams in the right inside picture. So we were finally able to remove those dams, and the beavers built them back and removed them 6 more times. And trapped, lost count, dozens upon dozens of beavers. And we're now at a sustainable beaver population. The dams have been reliably gone for 6 or 7 months now. So the hope is that this could be part of the activation of that whole river system, and by having more canoers and kayakers out there, it would also help to discourage the beavers from building dams right there. It's definitely a spot that we need to keep an eye on for maintenance purposes, because it takes one dam to literally block an entire area and flood the entire road bed in here. It's the last thing anybody wants is in midwinter to have the roads underwater and freeze over and have somebody skid up the road and go in the canal there. Yeah, but there too, the dichotomy between having this industrial urban river right next to this really natural area, it brings all kinds of interesting challenges with it. And it's cool if we can somehow find ways to capture both sides of it, the sort of industrial history, but also the natural aspect, so it really becomes a cool draw for people that come out here. It's like all so close. All right, so we've been on the river 3 more times. We removed another 130 standing trees, and in the meantime, after we cleared it the first time around, another 15 trees have fallen in the river again. We still have a lot of dead standing ash. It's going to take some time before it's all gone. I actually got some money from the county a month ago, and we removed another 9 trees that have fallen in the last round of storms. So it's ongoing. Here's a tree of heaven. Just falling by the road banks. Created it here. Been working with high school students to actually remove all the small stuff, because there are thousands of these little lips. And we did a program last summer where we had high school students on a program actually remove all these, and we worked with the fire department, and we got jacked on fire and made s'mores out of our tree of heaven. Just a month or 2 ago, we removed the last big ones that were teetering over Pace's Pizza and right around the tree right here. And to the right's picture from Pittsburgh last summer. Those are all dead spotted lantern flies on the sidewalk. That's how bad it can get. So we were trying to avoid that by removing their windows. And then the bank restoration part. So the bank below the train station, and this goes back to the discussion earlier about the dam. So just because the dam purposely keeps the lake at the exact ideal levels, was 1,210.5 feet above sea level. There's like a specific number in which the ideal level for Stockle Lake is. So all summer the intent is to manipulate the dam such that the lake level stays as close to the ideal level as possible. So as a result of it, the water in the basin is always sitting at exactly the same level as well, because that's where the dam pretty much stops it, right? So what happened is that exact same level of interface where the water hits the banks, and it happened on both sides. One side has already been rebuilt. With this side, the area where the water touches the banks becomes super saturated. And then when you open a dam, because there's that pinch point right at Steel Street, which is not that far, Steel Street pinch point will hold most of the water pressure back, but the water between Steel Street and the dam gets sucked out really fast when you open the dam, because there's not a lot of resistance. So you also have this suction effect where you've got this super saturated layer right where the water level is, and you open the dam just a little bit and it sucks that water out with all the sediment. So doing this for a couple of decades, the bank was actually physically undercut more than 2 feet deep in places. So the trees that were growing there were able invasive species or non-native species that were in poor health. All the bank in front of the trees and most of their root balls had washed and eroded away, and they were undercut 2 to 3 feet in some places. So I was just waiting for one of these trees to come down and take this entire root ball with it and just leave a truck-sized hole in the banks right away. So that's why we decided last year to cut those trees down preemptively, so that at least we keep the roots in place, and keep the banks in place, and not. And you can see the top picture. The trees are all leaning into the river. It's just a matter of time before it will go. And in the bottom left picture, this is right by the Main Street Bridge. You can see the rack line. These are all pine needles and leaves. This is where the water stands. So the retaining walls are not even tall enough to keep the river in place. And everywhere So the city awarded funds to actually rebuild that bank, so we took all the trees out preemptively so they wouldn't do more damage to the bank and make it an even more expensive project. And Dan Stone and his crew are fantastic to help with that as well. And then, in order to prevent the same problem from happening again, we have to make sure that that exact height where the water is maintained was needed to be armored, so it wouldn't be just soft urban soils. It's just fill, there's really nothing that would keep it in place. So we armor all that with a layer of riprap. And it was just hydroseeded just before the summer hit, and then it just got hot and dry, and it's all concrete right now. But this fall, as soon as temperatures come down a little bit and we get some more rain in there, we're gonna start planting that side of the bank as well with native vegetation. So it's not only going to be greened up, but it also is going to create habitat for butterflies and fish habitat. We're planting plants in front of the bank as well, so the fish can spawn in there, so the fishermen will be happy and can keep fishing things away. So essentially, it will have the same kind of look and feel to it eventually as the opposite bank behind the BPU with these native pollinator gardens there, and creating interesting scenarios. And because I've been scaring all of the beavers out of the outlets, a lot of them seem to have moved into the city land.
Thanks, Lon.
I met one across the
So,
street.
beavers in the city are insane, it is insane. But these are what we call bank beavers, they're not beavers that actually build dams and lodges, they just live in the bank and eat whatever is there, they just live there. But because most of the trees along the river were tree of heaven or some other invasive, most of the invasives tend to grow fast and have really soft wood. And so the river, we're fortunate to have a mostly tree-lined river with beautiful silver maples and large trees and all that. Some might be over 100 years old. But those are the only things that are interesting to beavers to gnaw on, because they have to keep chewing, otherwise their teeth keep growing. So they need hardwoods to chew on. So unfortunately, nature is striking back at us, and these beavers are not only making holes in the banks, but they're also actually stripping the bark up and chewing on the trees that are providing shade, that keep the river cool, that keep the city cool, that actually do important things for us. And you might say, well, you can just plant more trees, but it's going to take another 60, 80, 100 years before those kiwi trees that we're physically capable of planting reach the same size and the same functionality as these big old trees do. So a simple investment in some chicken wire and some community activation here and there actually helps protect these trees from beaver damage. So we've been actually organizing a lot of community events to protect all of our trees. So you see a lot of city trees actually have chicken wire wrapped around just to make sure the beavers don't drop them. And we started planting some native vegetation here and there along the banks just to get us started. This section right now is still snow fenced off because it's right below the new Tim Hortons, so I didn't want to have any kind of burn damage from people backing the equipment in there. But you can see the difference in 2 months, from just planting it to 2 months later. It's like a beautiful native bank, and this is the stuff that's going to keep our river banks in place, and eventually will cover up the rocks, and it's going to look really nice and natural and green, and it's very low maintenance, so it's really a great way to have it. And then, yeah, you can kind of see what it's going to look like. And so in the meantime, we've been doing other stuff, like I mentioned, algal blooms and some of the dam stuff already. We've done some sedimentation studies to try to figure out what to do with the basin. Still have ongoing conversations with Crystal and folks here at the city too about water safety. We need to have some safety lines going across the river there so we don't accidentally lose a pipe or to the dam somewhere and we get stuck in. Because honestly, by the time you see they'll probably be on the signs, you're already in the dam. And the dam has a 10-foot tall slick concrete spillway with a chain link fence on top, so if anybody flips their boat and gets into the dam, you couldn't even get rescuers in there, you couldn't even throw a rope in there because you're literally not able to get to them. There's nothing to hold on to the people to keep themselves from going into the dam. And the ongoing question about what to do with the trash that's stuck in the dam that keeps coming up, and it's, initially when this came up years ago, this was way before all this activation was happening. I kind of thought maybe we can find a catchment device here somewhere so it wouldn't reach the dams, you couldn't see it, but ever since that discussion started, now we've got pedestrian bridges and we've got activated river walks and all that, so, and plus we want people to start boating in there, so we can't really run a cable across the river out there. So to me, the ideal solution would be to have the trash collection be downstream somewhere, but here too, you kind of see it here. If you look at the algal bloom and occurrence that are happening through the basin, there's no current visible in the spillway of the dam. It's solid green, right? Because the doors underwater. So the currents dictate where the algal blooms and all the trash and all that, and debris will pile up on the surface. But once you get into that narrows right here, the current actually goes under the surface. So any of the trash that floats to the surface will blow in against the dam, but the current is actually happening 4 or 5 feet underneath it. So most of the trash will not even go through the dam; it'll just float on top. So the current configuration of the dam is also not conducive to being able to actually get the garbage out of there in some way. So again, these are all things I think that need to be discussed.
Years ago, wasn't there an effort to put some type of cable operated basket system that just dragged across the top of the dam?
Yeah, and I honestly, I think, I kind of just Google it in there, I'm a 5-year-old, but the safety boom, as far as I'm concerned, should be right underneath that the downstream pedestrian bridge, because then rescue could just, if someone's clinging to be alive to that cable right there, which wouldn't be happening because there's not a whole lot occurring there, but if somebody falls underwater there and you want to rescue them, you can just walk right across the bridge and fish them out pretty much. But I think a trash blocking device could potentially be hidden underneath that bridge too and not be terribly visible for people walking there. But then the big question is who's going to clean it up? Like, it's one thing to just capture it, it's another thing to then get it out of the river and get it somewhere else. So there's a lot of things that get that. So. And then really quickly, I'm also working on clearing out the county waterways, so Casadega and Conowingo Creek. And one of my, it's not really secret anymore, but one of my plans is to find a way to connect the Chattaquin River to the county waterways by the time they're safe and recreationable again, I guess that's a word. Because right now the county waterways, the Martin Cop Waterway Trail is essentially a county park, and there's no maintenance budget to maintain those. They're not in a maintainable shape at all. We're essentially doing the same thing there on like almost 40 miles of river as we were doing in Chattaquin. We were like removing hazards and strainers, and people were dying out there, literally drying, getting pinned on the logs and things like that. But we're getting close to getting those opened up again and safe again. But if we were able to connect the Chattaquin River to the Martin Cop Waterway Trail, then that could potentially become eligible for funding for maintenance as well. So then, because everything I'm showing you right here are essentially one-offs that were possible because there was additional ARPA funding available to do these things that should have been done piecemeal over the last however many decades. So we're getting caught up on maintenance right now, but the ongoing maintenance need will still exist. And where that funding's coming from, obviously, is everybody's question. But if it were possible to make the Chattaquin River navigable and attach it to the Martin Cobb Waterway trail system, then there could potentially be state funding available to maintain the river going forward, so there would be at least an allocation every year to just keep all the work that has been done functional. But the really cool thing is that Casadega Creek comes out of Bear Lake and the Casadega Lakes, and Conowingo is connected to the Allegheny Reservoir. And, it would essentially connect Stockwell Lake to all the other lakes in the county pretty much. And if those were connected through waterways where people can go fishing, go kayaking, go canoeing, you can actually extend all the recreational opportunities that we're all looking at for the Chattaquin, essentially like spread them over the entire county. You can have kayak rentals and those kind of things all over the county. You can create a whole economic infrastructure once those resources are actually available again, which is an opportunity we don't have right now. And again, like I said earlier, I think this is exactly the stuff that will bring people to this where they effectively have clean water. You have so much clean water, you can just go play with it. If you've ever been to California, you might be rationed to even take a shower. You're not going to wash your car at all. Like, those are the kind of things that are the new normal for a lot of people. So the fact that we have so much great water that we can just play with and go fishing in it and swim in it and kayak in it, that's going to be a really high commodity pretty soon. So the more we can do to just make that work, the better, I think. And then this is not a complete list, but for where we are right now, we're, as I mentioned, kind of at a standstill on the restoration project downtown, but as soon as fall hits, we'll start planting and start greening it up. I think the funding still lasts until 2026. So we've got some time to just plant it hard and then spend the next year or two just kind of patching in, filling in blanks and holes and things some CFA funding, $326,000 and change through, soil and water that are meant to do exactly the same thing for the banks on either side of the river by Shopping Center, between the bridges there, as well as a section behind Surf Pro where, all of the trees have come off the bank and massive amounts of sediment have actually grown into the river out there. Their entire backyard is washing away. So those are projects that hopefully, once the contracts come through, we'll start permitting and hopefully we can get started on it this winter. And then I wrote a grant for the city last year to, develop a master plan for the Jamestown River. So all these things we're just talking about need to just be captured in the documents so that we all have the same information to start with and kind of start thinking forward with that. So hopefully that will, they are too, we're waiting for a contract. I was also contracted by the county to do a master plan for the Warren Cobb Waterway Trail System, so that will also include, my plan to include the Chacoin River with that and just have, funding allocations available for all of the major waterways in the county. And then there's these great regional economic development initiative projects that, are in the hopper. So I know I'm working with, Christy Kaufman right now on doing some more educational signage, interpretive signage to put around the river basin. I know the benches have been ordered, there's all kinds of placemaking items that are coming in as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming, so I think I'm just kind of building the foundation for whatever is possible going forward. And, I just kind of bring down like the different projects that I've been involved with. There are new authors, undoubtedly more, but the city has invested quite a lot of money through the Watershed Conservancy to do all these projects, but right now, those funds have helped leverage more than $3.5 million worth of improvements on the Chacoin River already, and there's probably more that I didn't include in the list there, so, it's exciting to see these projects just kind of lead to bigger projects and more projects, and it's great to see that there's plans coming together. So that's where we are.
Thanks, Twan.
Yes, that was great.
Yeah.
And tomorrow,
Tomorrow we'll do a walk here, so if you wanna walk and just actually see and watch me point at things that we've done and things that need work. And yeah, I'll talk to aspects of this, we just kinda walk around the basin and kind of look at things that have been done. And
where are we meeting?
we're meeting at Panzerella Park. 12:30, right?
12:30, yes.
And it's open to the public, right?
Yeah,
So
and it's great because there's so many little things that could be fixed that could really save us just a fortune if you were able to just do that. Like little runoff issues, there are things like, I can tell you right now, but once you're out there and you see it, it makes sense. And, there are things that just need to be addressed. And also coming with the dam comes some complexities for ownership. So even though I'm restoring bank sections on either side of the dam itself sits on state land, which I can't touch. So there's some issues there that are beyond the city or the county to even fix. There's other things that really need to be, frankly, some of the projects, like the way the Army Corps left the banks after they upgraded the dam is pretty abysmal as far as I'm concerned.
Is there anyone at DEC to talk to about upgrading the dam?
I'm not sure it's on their radar to upgrade it. I think they're happy with it. It does what they want.
That's what
They're happy with what it does for them, but they're not here. They're not seeing other
You
things.
can ask them to put it on there, I guess.
So,
As long as it's
but
there.
yeah, I'm sure. It's all going through, the Office of Flood Management.
Office of Flood.
Yeah, I can give you some contact information.
Yeah, if you have a contact, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to hear what they,
Yeah,
just to ask them, maybe they already have future plans.
yeah.
Or if it's not on their radar, say, hey, we wanna make sure that we preserve the lake and the use of the lake and recreation and also the
That
river.
makes sense. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And we want their money, so.
Yeah, I think there's been so little attention to the river and no one's raised their hand and said, hey, what about the river for a long time, but that's changing, so I think that both are equally valid.
This is really nice, what you're talking about. And I can't help but recall, 50 years ago, we did the Brooklyn Square Urban Renewal Project. Once we started uncovering buildings and seeing more what the river and everything was, it was back then that a big desire was building up amongst people in the city to make that river going through the Chacoin become a much nicer addition is now exposed
Mm-hmm.
in the city. Just, so I sit and think, wow, it only took 50 years to get to this discussion now.
Yeah.
But it's one of the difficulties, though, in cities, is a lot of things look more useless at one time, until this time goes by, and another time it looks like, well, they can really do a lot with it.
Right.
But it takes a lot of work and a lot of interest from a lot of people, not just City Hall.
Absolutely.
A lot of people to
Yeah.
get it going. So, I'm happy,
Great, I'm glad to hear
yeah.
that. It's a community asset, right?
I'm too young or too old to go down and splash around in it now.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Tomorrow at 12:30.
Sounds great.
Is there,
Awesome.
can we post it on the city's Facebook page?
I
invite or
can,
something?
I
it's
think
there,
that's
I've
been
seen
done.
it.
Oh, it has been?
As far as I
Yeah,
know.
still pushing it out,
Yeah,
too.
but I can check
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
It probably is there.
No, I keep thinking that, the only reason why Jamestown's here is because of the Chautauqua River, right? That's why they built it, because this is their transportation hub. And the other thing too is like, I love how, actually don't love it at all, but the county grant programs that are focused on the waterways stop at the Warner Dam. Because that's where technically Chautauqua Lake ends. So, you stand in the dam, you look at Chautauqua Lake, and it's where do you have funding and where do you have development and protection, and you look the other way, and nobody cares anymore, and it's just Chautauqua Lake in linear form, right? If we just change that mindset, that we can activate the Chautauqua River the same way we could potentially activate Chautauqua Lake. Everybody knows that Chautauqua Lake is a big economic driver, but it's the same water, it's the same pond, it's just where you draw the line, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we just have to think outside the box. Well, thank you for having me, appreciate it.
Thank you,
Keep
Twan.
working on it.
I will.
Yeah.
Your team?
Absolutely, yeah, I love it.
Good.
All right, so we'll proceed with the agenda. I do want to open up to public comment. I don't think there's anybody here for public comment right now. So we will proceed to the site plan application for the Chautauqua Center parking lot. Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing us to switch the agenda around to a little bit.
My pleasure, it's much more entertaining. It's gonna be a revolution.
Light plant shut down?
What was that, Jeff?
We used to call it the light plant. Did it shut down? It's really dark in here.
Oh, well, I turned them off so the slides were a little easier to see.
They didn't usually though.
You there, my eyes are getting bad.
Okay, Joe Palumbo, Carmen Wood Design, I think, we met a month ago, for this project. I think the same group is here, I can run through this again. So we're proposing a reactivation of, let's kind of look through this slideshow that we got here, obviously we know what that is. Here's our location map. You can see on here where the project location is. Down here is where the Chautauqua Center is now, Brake Street, Institute Street, Harrison, Foot Ave is at the far side. The project, these sites with the big red X's are not in control by the Chautauqua Center. The yellow box properties are the ones that we're looking at here today. 25 Briggs, this is 106 through 110 Harrison, and then at the other end is 116 Harrison. Let's see what we got for the next slide here. We'll go on some site plans. So we put together a little colored site plan here for you to kind of get an overview of what we're proposing. I think we showed you this last time. So once again, the Chautauqua Center, Brake Street, Institute, Harrison. So part of this is what we found is that the Chautauqua Center, it needs more parking. And I know everybody hates to hear that and want more parking, but what they're proposing to do is to put a 27 stall parking lot on the property at 116 Harrison Street, and that is to provide parking for employees at the Chautauqua Center, to open up more surface and under the building podium for tenants and customers or patients coming to the Chautauqua Center. That's what the primary good word for it. What we're proposing to do is to open up a pedestrian cross across Craig Street along, they have control over 25 Craigs, and a new sidewalk next to 25 on that site, and then refurbish part of the existing alleyway to be able to provide clear pedestrian passage to this parking lot at 116 Harrison Street. So really, 116 Harrison, it's important to note that currently it is a parking lot. It was a parking lot, it's all stone surface. So they're really looking to just reactivate it and bring it up to today's standards. Important to note that that walkway we talk about is all pedestrian, no vehicular, and we'll be putting in, lighting along that way too, so that during the, the winter seasons when it gets darker earlier, there will be adequate light for pedestrian.
Will there be security cameras?
I couldn't tell you, I think it would be more, if they start to have problems, I'm sure that they would then implement something along those ways. No one really wants to believe that we need security cameras. Part of it is 25 Briggs will be up, that's under their control, and 116 Briggs, the building, those two buildings will remain. There's a little shed at the far end of 116 that will come down, it's kind of old and looks like it's about to fall down. Important to note is the corner lot is not in their control, at Briggs and Foot. Actually, it's Harrison, Foot, and Briggs, kind of, it's Harrison and Foot, sorry, this is Yorkshire Ave. Part of the project they want to do is implement, they want to take down this old dilapidated building. Part of the building itself doesn't have a roof on it anymore. I believe all the surfaces have been cut off. The building in between, which I believe is like an auto parts store building. Basically, the rest of what I have on presentation here would be, I think you would have seen some site plans, just to kind of give you an idea how far along we've been with it. So we put together, a fully engineered site plan, grading plans with storm drainage, and full landscape plans, and lighting plans for the site. In that set, you would have had some proposed drainage areas, so you have an understanding of what we're doing with the drainage and how it's gonna affect the existing drainage system. We're proposing to reuse the existing infrastructure that's on the site already currently, and then just basically re-up it with a new catch basin and collective drainage. But the implement of the new green space will reduce runoff off the site as it is now. Plus, you're looking at 106 to 110, where that building comes down. The intent there is that'll just become open green space that they don't want to have any like parking there, or they just want to get the buildings down because they're unsafe right now. That is kind of my slideshow. I can work this back to the color drawing. If you have questions about the project, about what's happening, assuming you got packets, you would have gotten a SEAF for the project. You would have received we did the coastal assessment form for it, and I'm calling it that, that's what I'm used to calling it.
Waterfront assessment.
Your waterfront assessment form. Yeah, it's confusing. There's not a lot of coast. Throughout the waterfront assessment, when I went through it, really, we're not really affecting any of your shoreline along the Chautauqua River. Should have no impact on any of the waterways due to, it's kind of an existing situation. What we have now, and we believe that by bringing it up to today's standards, by putting it in green space, and taking it down the old building, we're really improving the situation. It's important to know that alleyway now is pretty much overgrown with weeds and, unwanted invasive species, we can use that term again. And it's really not very traversable. I walked through it and, it's a mess back there. So this would give it an opportunity to clean that up and provide safe passage for pedestrians, mostly employees from the Chautauqua Center to the new proposed parking lot.
First of all, I want to say that this is fantastic. I mean, this area needs something like this to occur. That building there is blighted and really needs to come down. The Chautauqua Center has done such a fantastic job with the other building that I'm sure the quality of the project is going to be, very high. Couple of areas I just wanted to touch on, Joe. the site plan application that was submitted includes all parcels that TCC currently owns. So I guess what I'm asking right now, we're only taking a look at the parking lot, from what I've been told, you know, as far as this site plan review. I'm trying to figure out, you know, how we can avoid, you know, the issue of segmentation, because all of the tax parcels are listed on the application for site plan approval, yet we're only looking specifically at one parcel. I know that there's ways through the secret process that we can take a
So
look at.
Greg, I think I can chime in with some clarification for that. I think one of the things that we can do is, have the site plan application just amended to 116 Harrison. And, because their current application, the description of the project is just of the parking lot. So while the site plan application includes all the parcels under their control, the description of the project is just for 116 Harrison. So if it's more useful to have the site plan application resubmitted with just 116 Harrison included on the application.
Well, also for the demolition, because I would imagine they're gonna go forward with a demo of the lighter building.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of, we run into this when we have all these different parcels,
Yeah.
right? And you have, in this case, there's at least 3 here, right? And there's some old parcels and lot lines out there. You know what I mean? Because part of this is really, you know, we want to improve this pedestrian path on 25 Briggs, so this is one parcel, yes. The 106 and 110 Harrison may be a couple little parcels that are kind of jammed together where that building is. This is existing open space, but they do want to take that down as part of this project. And then, of course, 116 Harrison is a standalone parcel on its own.
Correct.
And they are not currently combined, no. So if it were easier to break these into 3 different site plan applications,
Well,
one for 25, one for the
I wouldn't
106.
say that, because at least from what I understand of, you know, secret regulations, it doesn't matter if you know, because the geographic location, the purchase points of all the properties, and the ownership of all the properties. And I trust that, you know, TCC is not gonna put a manufacturing business in one of those buildings, but they could, because it's in a, that will be, you know, one of their rights, because of the zoning there.
Greg,
So-
I'm gonna chime in again, just with, so I think one of the other options that we have, in terms of evaluating and voting on the seeker, and the site plan application is certainly the option and prerogative of any commissioner to perhaps deny the seeker approval, but approve the site plan application.
Can't. The site plan is not complete until there's a neg deck on the seeker.
Right,
And I
and
think
so,
that Joe can-
but we haven't voted on the seeker yet.
Yeah, but we can't
So
approve the site.
depending on how the vote of the seeker, what the outcome of that is, then that will indicate what we need to do for next steps for site plan approval.
I'm not sure if I'm following.
So
you.
Well, because the
we-
approvals of
because
the approvals of the seeker and the site plan are separate approvals.
Correct.
And so the first thing really is the determination of the seeker approval.
It's not an approval. It's a.
Negative.
Acceptance,
declaration of
acceptance, the
environmental-
acceptance of the seeker.
But when, first we have to do that no matter what,
Yeah,
before
matter
we do
what.
anything.
so
So
the,
let's focus on the seeker. And are there any questions or discussions regarding just the seeker?
just a couple. Joe, did you use the EAF mapper when you prepared
Yes.
this? Okay. Then, and you noted there are some discrepancies in what the mapper kicked back and what it is actually there because of because of the buffer zone that DEC has on it, so. Okay, this is pretty straightforward, but again, the seeker goes back to what the application is for, and the application, lists the parking lot, buildings.
No, the site plan application does not, in terms of the description of the project, if you'd like to
in
look at their
terms of the-
application.
In terms of the county parcel identification.
Right, in terms of the description of the project, the description of the project is exclusively on the parking lot.
And
Well, it was the parking lot.
parking lot and demolition of the building.
Right.
With replacement of the green space, and I respectfully disagree. Now,
Okay, so
I would say the precedent is the county parcel identification.
All right, well, let's go back to just the C.
Yeah,
Okay. So, are there any recommendations from the city about the seeker, the negative declaration or not?
The city's position is that it would be a neg deck.
Okay. Any conditions, just a negative declaration from the city? Okay.
No,
we are missing part 2 and part 3.
yeah, I can go print that out.
Any discussions from the planning commission members in terms of just the seeker? Whether
Yes,
it's a negative or positive declaration or just discussion?
I say that we have incomplete information to determine if there'd be a neg or a pos deck, because we don't have sufficient information in regards to the remaining parcels that are listed on the application in order to get a full seeker determination.
What information are you looking for?
Well, primarily the 2 buildings that are gonna remain standing, they're in a manufacturing zone. So they could be utilized for manufacturing purposes. That may impact the usage of the parking lot, may impact, the other environmental concerns for the area. What I'm trying to do, and Joe, just so you understand, I love the project. I am trying to make sure that, when we make a decision, it's a solid decision that's gonna withstand any challenges.
But why are we basing it off the description on the application?
Because that's what was applied, that's what is on that is, and it's also included on all the site plans.
So what's on the environmental assessment form too?
Yeah,
Verbatim, that matches verbatim to the site plan.
as does the parcel numbers.
Yeah, but we can do a negative declaration just on the description of the project.
You're approving the project, not saying that you can do whatever you want on the site. They describe what the project is. If you're approving a seeker with a project description, you're saying, okay, this is what we're approving. Not, whatever in the world is possible on this site, we're approving.
This is what you're doing.
If they were to outfit one of these buildings differently than what it is now, or to change the use of it, they'd have to come back to the planning. So, what happens with these 2 buildings that are kind of currently vacant or used for storage, is my understanding that what was going on inside the buildings in the parking lot. We're just trying, really realistically, we're just trying to reactivate this existing parking lot.
Yeah, and that's fine, and I think what we're getting at is the same thing, because we'd be looking at a segmented review, but that's allowable. But, in order for us to make that determination that we can do a segmented review, splitting those off, a general idea of what TCC, had in store for those buildings, whether it's just, they're not gonna do anything with them. I see that there's a for lease sign on one of the buildings currently.
And until they have a tenant to lease it, if they're gonna lease it, I can't promise they're gonna do anything. they're probably just gonna sit there.
And that's,
And, I mean, unfortunately, they're there, and I think they're in good enough condition not to tear down at this point. And they potentially could be serviceable for the neighborhood. It is a manufacturing neighborhood too.
Yeah,
So you're right, it could be, I mean, they could lease it to a
could
storage
lease it to
company,
somebody
to a
doing
manufacturer,
chemical
but it-
manufacturing.
when that use comes in change, I'm sure that you have to see that approved.
And I don't understand how, you know, leasing, say leasing a building next to the parking lot changes the use of the parking lot, it's still a parking lot. I know that currently, as we're looking at it, it's a parking lot to service medical building. And if some business went into that building, it's still a parking lot that would service both medical building.
Right, the
And,
function of that,
the
the
park-
site plan does not change.
No, it's still just a parking lot.
That's,
If the medical campus was able to gain control of that next parcel, and they wanted to expand that parking lot, that again would probably have to come from us.
And that is currently a parking lot as well.
Yes. That is also
Stone,
correct.
broken up asphalt, parking lot, right out to the property lines, it does not meet current code, no.
okay, so we'll base the seeker.
Can I ask a question, so I can just make sure I'm oriented correctly? Two streets, the one at the top,
That's
the one on the
Harris's.
side, are they the same as what's on these drawings? We're talking Foot Avenue and Harrison Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're.
That's what
you're-
that drawing is
Yes,
too.
this is, yes, so north
Okay.
is where I'm standing, and north is up on the drawing,
So there's
checkpoint is
Jamestown
kind
is
of
right
right
there.
where you're sitting,
Right,
on the other side of
Is
where
there a split
the
required
shop
for
is.
this one?
okay.
Is there a split required for this?
Let's see, better question for.
I did a lot of these kind of drawings years ago,
Was
and I
there a
always look
stormwater
for those
protection
I'm
plan
sorry, I
required?
didn't-
things
Was there a
like
split
this being on
required?
all the drawings,
Well, I,
old fashioned, I
I'm
guess.
always looking for the old north arrow,
Okay,
right?
I saw it mentioned on one of the drawings. that there was
Engineer drawings are in the
Split
steps,
side, I would
further
assume that
on,
you
if you
would
wanna look
review
at
that.
what we did, and the details
I
are
think
all
it's
in
probably
there.
under this.
Yeah, I was starting to look at it
Off the
before.
top of my head.
But no, that's good, I just needed to clarify that, just to be sure.
So, I noticed on one of the drawings that a split was provided or is mentioned.
We did not provide a SWIFT due to the level of disturbance that we're proposing. And I believe the numbers, I can read off the disturbance numbers for you if you want. It's on the drainage area, which
No,
is,
I was trying to resolve a discrepancy between what I
No.
read on one of the prints.
I mean, we're only, I think, one of the prints says something about the SWIFT? Oh, so you're on the, if you're in the, you might be looking at where we have, what I provided was a demolition erosion control plan.
Yeah,
So, which is a little bit different than a SWIP. This is more like your plan for how we're handling runoff
correct.
during construction, when we demolish the building, when